Part 77. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 765. Garen laughed dumbly. People who really don't know the inside story will naturally think of this. After a long time, he slowly stretched out his hand and raised his index finger. The white fingertips have become slightly translucent. Smiling, he shook hands gently into a fist. See? These are the rules of the world. Rules. Ningruoxi's pupils narrowed slightly, and she also saw the slightly transparent finger. Don't be sad, Garen said calmly. He reached out and gently rubbed Ceci's hair. You are the most talented among all my disciples. Don't be bound by your own heart. Zixi didn't know why, but a faint throbbing suddenly surged in her heart. She lowered her head and clenched her fists. Dang! 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 It was the low sound of a bell from the outside world. Garen was stunned for a moment, and finally saw the bud in his mind slowly opening, and the bud bloomed with an unparalleled golden halo in an instant. He stood up, and his body expanded involuntarily, reaching his physical limit of the fifth star form. The terrifying body caused a whirlwind of airflow in the living room like a giant devil. Call. A strong gust of wind caused Zixi to take a few steps back involuntarily. Teacher, she raised her head with some confusion and anxiety, looking at Garen standing in front of the window under the moonlight. The airflow became more and more violent, causing all kinds of things in the living room to fall down and fall on the carpet, making a dull collision sound. As my last gift in this world, Garen calmly stared at the disciple he valued most, and was actually the most loyal disciple. Everything is both your fate and my blessing. He raised his index finger and gently stretched it out with the finger that was about to disappear completely. Laugh. A black light flashed suddenly, drawing a black line and accurately hitting the center of Ningruoxi's eyebrows. In an instant, Ningruoxi tilted her head slightly and was knocked back several steps. This is the last trace of my existence in this world. Roar. A deep dragon roar came out, and countless black shadows emerged from behind Garen, wrapping it up and turning into a coiled nine-headed black dragon. In an instant, countless cracks appeared on the dragon's shadow, as if the mirror was suddenly cracked, with a crisp crash. The nine-headed dragon shattered instantly and turned into countless black fragments flying. Teacher, Ningruoxi rushed over and tried to reach out to grab the black shadow, but her grasp was in vain. She stood there blankly, and for some reason, tears suddenly fell from her eyes and she couldn't stop them. At this moment, in a square far away in Madrid, Bai held Aishiro's hand and suddenly turned his head slightly and looked in a certain direction. What's wrong? Aishiro's cheeks were slightly red, and he glanced at him doubtfully. Following his line of sight, he saw that there was just a dense street building. Nothing. Wan smiled. It just suddenly felt like someone I knew had left. Leave? Aishiro was slightly confused. Stop thinking so much, go watch a movie. Bai pinched Aishiro's face affectionately, and the two held hands and walked along the roadside into a movie theater. Indonesia. I'll try diving at night this time. With the underwater lights, it's definitely more exciting than during the day, Vivian chuckled while checking the frogman equipment on her body. Lisa, how are you? Are you ready? She looked at another petite frogman on the side. No problem, Alicia made an okay gesture. Where are you, Rod? Vivian turned to look at another taller man. It's okay. I said we should dive during the day. It's very dangerous at night. What if we encounter a shark or something? Rhodes was still a little worried. What are the sharks afraid of? With my brother's help, the sharks will also deliver food when they come. I'm not tired of the shark fins I ate last time, so I'll just add some more this time. Little Vivian waved her hand very proudly. She now eats, drinks and has fun every day, and can be regarded as a standard white, rich and beautiful woman. She has a strong and powerful background, and even the children of top officials and businessmen have to give her face. Together with Rhodes and Alicia, the trio has now become a little bully. Fortunately, the three of them are not willful people and have not developed into a bad version of bullying men and women. Vivian pointed to a dark beach not far from the three of them. There are people guarding and protecting you 24 hours a day, so what are you afraid of? Let's go, get in the water. She was the first to fall from the boat and plunged directly into the water. Rhodes and Alicia exchanged helpless glances and put on oxygen masks. There were two sounds of falling into the water, and two fully armed frogmen plunged into the sea. However, the Vivian trio does have the ability to not care. Even if Garen is not here, Arissa's sister and Wan are lovers. No matter how the Holy Fist Palace changes, Garen's status as the Saint of Fists is unshakable. Anyone who takes the position will definitely protect their safety as soon as possible. The Holy Fist has now become a strategic deterrent force and spiritual symbol of the Holy Fist Palace in a short period of time. What's more, there are still some people who are loyal to Garen from beginning to end. For example, Ningruoxi, such as Sedong, such as the bald couple. Maybe everything is under Galen's arrangement. Call. Raphael suddenly sat up from the bed, sweating profusely, as if he had a nightmare. Her face turned pale and her eyes were slightly misty, as if she had just realized that she was in a strange place. Pulling the quilt to cover her upper body, she stood up from the bed and suddenly heard faint noises coming from outside. I walked to the window and looked down, and I saw a lot of luxury cars, off-road vehicles, sports cars, customized cars, and extended cars coming in all kinds of things. Well-dressed upper-class people stepped out of the car one after another. Under the protection of bodyguards, they seemed to be heading towards a nearby house. A large number of armed soldiers were already pulling up blockade banners and seemed to be sealing off the area. Raphael opened the window, and suddenly a series of small voices floated over in the wind. But it's very subtle and can't be heard at all. Her expression moved slightly, and she quickly drew an invisible symbol in front of her with her fingers. In an instant, the sound in the wind was directly amplified and transmitted to her ears. The disappearance of Master Boxing Saint should not be an accident. In terms of individual strength, there is no creature in the world that can be your opponent one-on-one. Based on this, what Chief Zixi said must be true. It's very possible. Master Fist Master's martial arts has reached a level that we can't even imagine. If we follow what is mentioned in those novels from the East, it is not impossible to reach the so-called level of shattering and ascension. This is too fantasy. I am more inclined to find a higher martial arts, someone said. In any case, we will immediately announce to the outside world that Lord Boxing Saint will be in seclusion for a long time. Now the biggest cohesion of our holy boxing palace is Lord Boxing. How long can we delay? Besides, Lord Pale is also our deputy palace master now. Even if Lord Boxing doesn't take action, it can also suppress the overall situation, an Eastern boxing practitioner analyzed. This is a good idea. Yes, let's do it. Raphael looked in that direction from a distance and could only see the shaking of heads and the sound coming from inside the house. She didn't pay attention at all. When she eavesdropped on the conversation of those people, there was a soundless sound in the shadow of the room behind her. Two inexplicable silhouettes emerged, which were the high-level vampires under the Holy Fist Palace. If it were someone without qualifications, they would probably kill them immediately. Galen, Raphael muttered in a low voice. New York. Now I announce that the First World Wizards Parliament election has officially begun. In a huge venue filled with thousands of people, AG was dressed in a white suit, his hair was neatly styled and coated with shiny hair wax, and he held a white and exquisite silver short stick in his hand. Standing on the main podium, he looked at the densely packed wizard members from all over the place below, feeling an indescribable excitement and satisfaction in his heart. Yes, he succeeded. After announcing the secret method that allowed him to maintain his power even after leaving the land of his ancestors, he immediately gained the support of almost 90% of wizards, regardless of whether they were wizards or witches. The biggest trouble that has always troubled wizards is that they cannot leave the land of their ancestors. Once they leave, once the ancestral blessing water they temporarily carry with them is consumed, their strength will be greatly reduced. But now with the secret method provided by AG selflessly, all witches and wizards have successfully gotten rid of this restriction. This also marks that wizards are officially eligible to step onto the world stage. The old wizard forces were replaced by the new Wizard Shadow Council, and AG was unanimously approved as the first voted speaker. This also marked the true arrival of a new era of extraordinary power. The Death Apostle level AG has also successfully replaced the Mother of Lions. Nasira served as the deputy speaker and assisted the AG. It's time for wizards to rise up. In the same year, Saint Garen of the Holy Fist Palace, seeking a breakthrough, went into seclusion and stayed in the Holy Fist Palace. As soon as the news came out, countless martial arts practitioners felt a pang of regret. In the minds of AG and the high-level officials from various countries who have initially learned about the extraordinary power, the boxing saint's return to seclusion also ignited their surging ambitions. Under such circumstances, the world once again fell into the coming turmoil. Garen's vision was dark, and he felt as if he was being squeezed by some force and flew out of the planet. His body directly turned into a black dragon-shaped aura, and was forced to fly towards the endless starry sky outside the planet. He glanced back and saw that the blue planet behind him was rapidly becoming smaller and darker. His own flying speed is getting faster and faster, getting faster and faster. There were all kinds of stars twinkling all around, and it was hard to see which direction he should go. You can't fly out aimlessly like this. Garen felt as if his body had completely melted, turning into a ball of pure spirit flying with his soul as the guide. Suddenly, there was a sudden tremor in the vacuum of the surrounding universe. Puff! As if he was rushing into some kind of liquid, Garen suddenly felt like he was plunging into sea water, and his whole body rushed from the vacuum of space into an unusually turbulent river. His soul could clearly see that a huge amount of light yellow river water was flowing at high speed around him. No, this is not water, this is the liquefaction of spirit. Garen was slightly shocked, finally knowing where the planet's repulsive force had sent him. This is the Mother River. This is where he first appeared. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 766. The Mother River runs through countless time and space and is boundless. No one knows where its source is, and no one can see where its endpoint is. Any practitioner of secret martial arts can only see its violent and powerful divergence. As soon as Garen entered the Mother River and looked out from the river, he could no longer see the starry sky. Instead, there were patches of barrier space with colorful halos. Is this what the Mother River looks like? This was the first time he saw himself floating in the Mother River so clearly. His accumulation last time was far less powerful and profound than this time, and the world this time was a more high-energy time and space, so the accumulated physical energy was consumed much slower than the previous time. Garen could feel that the nine-headed black dragon that his spirit had transformed into was being eroded by the river water. It was like extremely strong acid and alkali liquid, which violently corroded the black dragon's surface, causing it to roll over and shed little bits of fine black fragments and powder. I don't know what world I will enter this time. Garen saw two slightly transparent soul seeds floating side by side in the depths of his soul. One was cold blue, and the other was the Holy Phoenix scripture. Light golden color. Both seeds bloomed beautifully like flowers. Buzz. Suddenly, a huge pressure as majestic as the sea swept across the surface of the river. There were waves of dense roars and roars faintly revealed in the sense of oppression. I smell the scent of the Void Stalker. The descendant of the Warlock. Where? The huge and terrifying pressure caused the water of the Mother River to roll continuously, stirring up huge waves, like a storm and tornado. Those bursts of pure mental fluctuations clearly spread the will of the owner of the oppressive feeling. Garen's soul looked up and saw the colorful barrier outside the river constantly twisting, making crackling sounds and cracks. What is that? Before the other party got close, outside the barrier, he was given an extreme threat of impending disaster. Just the fluctuation of his will caused the river to roll violently and create huge waves. Garen was horrified, knowing that he had encountered a super creature among void creatures. He had no choice but to gather his energy as much as possible and reduce his area of contact with the river water. He vaguely felt multiple tyrannical powers with different temperaments from the other party's will. That power had the same origin as his, and it was also the power of soul seeds, but the other party had at least 10 times more soul seeds than he did. He cannot compete with such an existence. Creatures of the void? No wonder Nadia reminded me not to enter the void without permission. Garen calmed down, without any fear in his heart. It just keeps flowing forward aimlessly along the mother river. I don't know how long it took, but several strong-willed void creatures appeared outside the river again. Their soul seeds all reached at least dozens of levels, and their colors all reached at least the colorless level. All caused the water of the mother river to continuously roll and oscillate, which also made Garen completely forget how dangerous the void outside the mother river was. The only thing he could do was to shrink his size and extend the drifting time. Every time he enters the mother river, it is a journey of unknown life and death. Once his spirit is completely corroded and his soul is severely damaged by corrosion, what awaits him is to completely disappear into the mother river and become a pure imprint in it. As tyrannical void creatures appear more and more often, Garen was also gradually able to distinguish their power level from their will breath. Only soul-level creatures are qualified to detect the movement in the nearby mother river. The soul seed is divided into a colorless basic stage, followed by a 7-color stage, and each level will lead to a qualitative change. These creatures who have discovered Galen should be at least in the colorless stage, and have accumulated dozens of soul seeds at this stage. Perhaps their practice methods are slightly different from humans. As a human being, Garen only has 2 soul seeds now, and even the color of the soul seed itself has not been completely eliminated. In other words, it has not entered the colorless stage, and has not even entered the foundation of the soul seed stage. But what's better for him is that in the colorless stage, you only need to accumulate 5 soul seeds. After all of them are purified and colorless, you can enter the next stage. I don't know how long I drifted along the way. Gradually, Garen felt that the flow of the river seemed to have slowed down, and it was no longer as fast as it was at the beginning. Most of his spirit has been corroded, with only 1/5 of it left. He felt as if he was drifting into a branch that had many branches. With a shock, he seemed to hit a barrier and flow directly into a very narrow branch of the branch. As the flow of the tributaries slowed down, he could sense through the soul seeds that the surrounding colorful barriers seemed to be a little weaker and thinner. I don't know how long it has passed, but Garen's spirit has been completely exhausted, and now he is using his own body soul to radiate soul and spiritual power to resist corrosion. Fortunately, 2 soul seeds are much more powerful than 1, and the corrosion rate has become much slower. He floated forward quickly along the river, his vigor disappeared, and he began to feel anxious. After all, the power of the soul was the wealth he had accumulated after hard work in 2 worlds. If it is corroded now, it will be lost. If it takes longer, once one of the soul seeds is broken, it means that all his hard work in the world has been completely wasted. The flow speed of the tributary of the mother river is getting slower and slower, as if something is blocking it in front. Garen drifted slowly along the pale yellow river water and advanced slowly. Gradually, he found that the surrounding river water began to change color again, turning into the light green color it was when he first saw the mother river. From light yellow to yellow-green, then to light green. In the middle of the river, he shrank into something like a black ball. Along the river, he floated and sank like other floating debris, and was constantly being washed away. Garen looked around and saw that the width of the tributary had gone from being invisible at the beginning to only a few meters away now. These days, the tyrannical void creatures have almost disappeared. Garen couldn't judge the day and could only estimate it based on his own rough idea of time. The tyrannical void creatures that had often appeared since the beginning no longer appeared at this time. Apparently the Mother River entered a relatively hidden direction. He looked around and saw the same debris as his floating in the river from time to time. Some were white bone fragments, some were some kind of weird metal, and half-rotted feathers. He even saw something in the river. Plant leaves. But there is no soul material floating around like him. Not only around here, he has never seen anything similar to himself after drifting for so long. The entire Mother River seemed to be lifeless. Time passes little by little. Soon, some cracks finally appeared in the colorful arch-shaped barrier above the Mother River. After a while, these cracks gradually evolved into holes of different sizes, some were only the size of ants, and some were the size of fists. Garen looked out along the entrances of these caves and could only see swirling masses of black air, as deep as whirlpools. He had no idea where the outside was leading. But his situation no longer allowed him to delay. One of the two soul seeds was already showing signs of slowly melting. If he didn't find a way to leave the river, I'm afraid one of his soul seeds would be corroded in a few days. We can't do this. We must find a hole to leave here, Garen made a decision in his mind. His perception began to check little by little along the colored barrier above the Mother River. Those holes were too small to accommodate his body. Only holes the size of a wash basin could allow him to pass through successfully. He could sense from the black air coming from the entrances of these caves that they should all lead to unknown cosmic worlds. No one could tell what dangers there were in these cosmic worlds, but he had no choice now. Finally, he suddenly saw a hole the size of a wash basin. Just as he was about to float along the river, Garen suddenly exploded with a burst of spiritual power from below. The mental power combined with the majestic water of the Mother River turned into a strong physical impact, and he rushed out of the river with a bang. With a crash, Garen suddenly broke through the river and flew towards the cave entrance. Boom! At this moment, a large wave of water rose up, violently wrapping him up and pulling him back again. With a pop, Garen was pulled back by the water of the Mother River again. He was shocked and tried to break free again, but by the time he broke free from the package, the hole had completely moved away from its original position. Damn it, Garen was wrapped back to the Mother River again. He felt that his soul had melted slightly again, and his heart ached. This is the essence of his understanding that has taken him 2 lifetimes to truly condense, and it is now on the verge of melting at any time. He has already felt that the Mother River itself seems to have an inexplicable instinct. For his life that has been floating in the river for so long, it has been regarded as a part of the Mother River and will not let him escape easily. The hole had been completely missed. Although the river was slow but extremely firm, it carried him far away. No wonder there are so many cavities, and the water from the Mother River doesn't even flow along and leaks out. Garen understood. I can only wait for the next opportunity. He waited quietly, but fortunately, the tributary of the Mother River seemed to be getting narrower and narrower, and more holes of different sizes appeared in the surrounding colorful barriers. Without exception, these holes were swirling vortices of black air. Some are the size of a nail shell, and some are the size of a human head, but it is still rare to see one the size of a wash basin. Garen waited silently, and not long after, another large hole the size of a bathtub appeared in his field of vision. This is it, he let go of his senses, determined the precise location of the hole, and then began to accumulate all his strength. He knew that once he exerted his strength, he had to wait for the Mother River to rush out before he could react, otherwise he might be pulled back again like last time. The black hole is getting closer and closer. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 767. Garen waited for the best position, and the black ball he transformed into slowly contracted like a rubber ball. At this moment, it became smaller, like a compressed spring. Finally, when it floated to nearly 1/3 of the hole. Wow! Amidst the loud splashing sound, a black shadow suddenly flew out of the river and shot towards the hole. With just a pop, the black shadow completely disappeared into the hole. The green water of the mother river below stretched out tentacles like water flow in vain, waving a few times on the surface of the water without any target. It took a long time before it collapsed again and returned to calm. Garen rushed into the hole fiercely, feeling as if he had sunk into a thick layer of black oil. There was no light or anything else around. Garen's perception range is several hundred meters wide, but that's it, nothing exists around him. He is the only one floating along the inertia at high speed. This seemed to be an area with no light at all, but there seemed to be no gravity. Garen felt that he had been moving rapidly at the high speed when he rushed out. Fortunately, there is no corrosion from the mother river water here, so it can still last for a long time. Garen carefully observed the surroundings. Apart from him, he didn't seem to find any other substances. The sticky feeling I felt all over my body was only there at the beginning, but then it disappeared completely, maybe because I got used to it or something. He felt as if he was passing through some mysterious passage. Time passed by little, and he didn't know how long it had been. Maybe 10 days, 20 days, or even longer. Garen couldn't remember clearly. He just kept moving forward and rushed out according to the inertia. Gradually, there began to be faint fluctuations around him. He seemed to be in a long black passage. At this time, cracks gradually appeared around the passage. What was strange was that outside the cracks, fine starlight could be vaguely seen. Puff! Suddenly, the front suddenly became empty. Galleons seemed to be sprayed out from some pipe. The surrounding area suddenly brightened, and he actually rushed directly into a brilliant starry sky. Garen sensed that behind him was a huge, blazing fireball, with golden light and heat constantly radiating in all directions. That's a star. He recognized the name of the huge golden fireball. Behind him, the stars almost occupied most of his field of vision. The magma on the surface was rolling violently. Some dark red particles were lying on the surface like insects. In some places, streaks of golden slurry suddenly rushed out, which was dazzling. Looking around the small black ball that Garen transformed into, he saw dense starlight twinkling all around it. The light blue stars were looming as he moved, and some seemed to be eternal, ancient, and mysterious. Garen noticed that the black pipe he flew out of only lasted for a short while and then quickly broke and decomposed. He didn't know what it was, but it was more likely that it was the tentacles extending from the mother river, connecting the worlds of time and space. Hessas once casually mentioned some common sense in this regard. If it is really that kind of mother river tentacle, then it is probably impossible for him to go back now. This kind of tentacle usually only lasts for a short time. Like an epiphyllum, it will penetrate many time and space universes, but it will soon be destroyed. The automatic repairing power of the universe is annihilated and decomposed, which is a one-time and short-lived product. He came to this time and space, and he didn't know how long it would take if he wanted the mother river to project branch tentacles. After all, according to the knowledge of the magicians, there are infinite amounts of time and space in the world and universe. Theoretically, the limit number can never be seen, because the universe is also constantly projected into birth and death. At that time, the extension of space seemed to continue to infinite worlds, and every smallest tick of time could be a separate world slowly passing and evolving. Garen floated quietly in the starry sky, and soon he could no longer feel the breath of the mother river's tentacles behind him. The countless high-energy radiation flows from the star took him to accelerate in the original direction, only slightly deviating. The mother river only exists where there is life. This is the truth studied by the magicians. Because the water of the mother river is composed of chi liquid, and chi is produced by the combination of the essence, chi, and spirit of living things, it may also produce new creatures. There must be living things near the mother river. As expected, a huge blue planet suddenly jumped into his perception in the direction in which Galen was ejected. It was as if he suddenly changed from an invisible state to a visible state. The black ball that Garen transformed into passed through a silver-white chain-like protective net and fell straight towards the planet. Along with him, there were also a large amount of falling rubble. He seemed to have caught up with a large-scale meteor shower. The Mother Star Stealth Defense Skynet detected an abnormally large meteor shower that is about to land today. According to astronomers' observations, the maximum diameter of this meteor shower is 0.2.1 centimeters and the minimum is only a few millimeters. After passing through the atmosphere, it will burn up and will not cause any the remains. Eat more, I have to go to school again tomorrow. In a somewhat simple white room, a family was having lunch around a round table. There were several good-looking stir-fries and stews on the table. A subtle heat wafted from the stew, filling the air with a faint fragrance. At this time, the middle-aged woman sitting in the seat kept putting vegetables into the bowl of a teenage boy. A family of 2 adults, an old man, and 3 children ate quietly together. The tableware and rice bowls were made of white porcelain, and some places were chipped. It seems that the family's living conditions are very poor. The white lights in the room were slightly dim, and there were very few furniture inside, including tables, chairs, TVs, sofas, and a photo of an old man hanging on the wall, followed by clean white walls. The 2 adults had wrinkled faces and looked tired. They were wearing whitewashed work clothes. They were both blonde and had high noses, but their faces had a somewhat oriental temperament. The evening news was constantly playing on the television nearby. In the family, the 2 younger brothers and sisters looked at the big bowl of stew in the middle of the table from time to time, but neither of them reached out to scoop it up. Instead, they swallowed their saliva and just looked at the oldest one next to them. The teenager eats it. Eat more and remember to study hard in school. Your dad and I just suffered from the inability back then. The middle-aged woman kept scooping vegetables for the boy. I know, you've said it many times. Don't you bother me. The young man had black hair and blue eyes. Like the only old man present, he did not inherit the hair color from his parents. He had long hair and bangs on his face, covering most of his face. At this time, he was dealing with his mother's nagging casually with an impatient expression. The young man was wearing a pure white slender school uniform, with a dark blue stand-up collar sword-shaped logo on the cuffs and collar, with a faint blue electronic light flashing above it. Okay, I'm full. The young man suddenly put down his bowls and chopsticks, stood up and quickly left the room, entered a bedroom behind him, and closed the door with a bang. Eat. At this time, the only old man present spoke, and the other 2 younger brothers and sisters finally couldn't help but reach out and grab the soup spoon. Slow down. The 2 middle-aged couples showed a slight smile on their faces. They gave most of the remaining broth to the 2 children one by one, and then went to ladle soup and meat for the old man. No, my old lady can't eat so much. You guys need to eat more. You have to get up early and work tomorrow. The old man sighed and gave in repeatedly. In the room, the black-haired boy quickly ran to the only computer, pressed the power button, and turned it on. A photo of his name is posted next to the computer, Nono Shivalin. Nono Siwa was different from other peers. He was the hope of his family. When he was in middle school, he was admitted to Ragas L, the best mecha academy in the state, with excellent results. Translated to the specific meaning, it is Black Disc Academy. This is a powerful college that is extremely famous in several nearby states. It has a long history and has produced many high-ranking state officials and generals. In this chaotic world where the federal power structure is divided, almost all regions are represented by academies. Each academy has gathered a large number of powerful forces and has its own mecha school heritage. Black Pen Academy is famous in several states for its long-standing inheritance of several fighting techniques. Nanosawa's ability to enter this powerful academy naturally placed almost all of his family's expectations on him. In this society where order has almost collapsed, the academy is the largest authority, commanding the government's military, and the protector of one party. Being able to become an official mecha master is the ultimate wish of anyone. Nonosiwa skillfully turned on the computer, quickly entered an academy website called New Black Disk, entered the password, and then scanned the blue sword shape on his collar with a scanning stick. The website with a black interface on the screen suddenly showed the correct password. After passing the review, he quickly clicked on the inheritance database. A series of mecha combat techniques appear on the purchase catalog. Level 1 Arc Step, Level 1 Laser Sword, Level 1 Artillery Fire Control, Basic Perception Module Repair, Basic Laser Beam Repair, Level 1 Railgun Techniques, Level 1 Life Support System Maintenance and Processing. Densely packed and detailed classified knowledge is arranged in the catalog. Nanosawa's eyes quickly skipped the large purchase catalog and landed directly on his personal information at the bottom. Nonosiwa Level 1 Mastery of Arc Step, Level 1 Mastery of Artillery Fire Control, Mastery of Basic Perception. Being able to enter the official rating means that Nanosawa's strength is already at a very good level among his peers. Most of the others are only at the basic level and cannot be rated as higher. You must know that even the lowest level is extremely difficult. In the 8 years of the college, the graduation standard is an average score of at least one level in all required subjects. Nonosiwa was able to reach the first level in 2 subjects at the beginning of his sophomore year, which is indeed considered an excellent result. He has always been among the top 3 in his class. He looked at his grades, a look of pride suddenly appeared on his face, and he reached out and unconsciously touched the small crescent moon part in his pocket. Compared with those powerful students who come from a wealthy family and are trained by excellent coaches every day, he is able to achieve such good results with such a poor family background. Naturally, he is not just relying on ordinary talent. He has a secret, and it is the secret that allows him to sprint from an ordinary middle school student, stand out from hundreds of thousands of students, and become one of the hundreds of elites who have entered the Black Disk Academy. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 768. Touching the crescent moon in his pocket, he quickly wrote the assessment application in the personal information below. Nonosiwa applies for assessment of the first level magneto-optical cannon. The magneto-optical cannon uses shells made of metal with extremely high magnetic force as weapons to bombard them at high speed to achieve the special strategic purpose of killing metal mechas. It is a very targeted long-range attack method. But because of its extremely strong recoil, it is naturally difficult to control the accuracy. As long as you reach level 5 of the 5 disciplines, you are eligible to apply to learn professional tactics in advance, Nonosiwa murmured in a low voice, his heart burning. Each of the professional tactics is a powerful experience summary derived from generations of research and exploration. It is a powerful technique calculated by combining various essence techniques with the most advanced optical brain. Even those legendary inherited tactics are all evolved versions developed on this basis. Now that consciousness mechas have been popular for hundreds of years, countless tactics to train consciousness have been continuously spread. In terms of controlling mechas, they have almost reached the pinnacle. The Home Star Federation and the Galactic Alliance have evolved their experience in this area to the extreme in their war against the Phoenites for thousands of years. Various types of consciousness each carry their own unique imprints and abilities. They emerge in batches and are eliminated again and again. What remains until now is the most essential essence. Every time Nonosiwa recalled this magnificent history, he felt an uncontrollable desire and impulse in his heart. It is said that there is even the strongest mecha in the battle, which can single-handedly turn the tide of the entire war, which is a miracle. He held the crescent moon tightly in his pocket. I have this, I can definitely pass the test easily. He was extremely confident in this crescent moon that he accidentally obtained. His love and enthusiasm for mechas also made him choose to join the ranks of studying mechas without hesitation. Originally, he only had ordinary talents and qualifications, but it was this crescent moon that allowed him to cross several stages step by step and successfully squeeze into the Black Disk Academy. Uia has an automatic control mecha that assists him in controlling battles. As long as it is kept close to his body, it can provide strong control and help. It automatically calculates the shooting trajectory and automatically controls and avoids movement. This is simply a naked plug-in component. Su Songnu adjusted the web page, and he began to carefully check various information related to the assessment. He believed that with little crescent moon by his side, he would be able to pass the test easily. Nono Siwa was born in a very ordinary family. Both of his parents were ordinary company employees with average salaries. The tuition at Black Disk Academy was very expensive, and he had to pay a large deposit to avoid compensation if the training mecha was damaged. So in order for him to go to college, the two of them had to save money and borrow money everywhere to collect the tuition and security deposit. They also had to pay back a large amount of interest on the bank loan every month. In this society, going to college is extremely expensive. In order to help his brother succeed in the future, his younger siblings gave him the opportunity to go to college, even though they both had excellent grades. He has also become the family's only hope. Outside, the family is proud to have him as an older brother, so much so that even when eating non-artificial meat at home, they have to let his brother eat enough before eating it. Boom, boom, boom. There was a knock on the door. What are you doing? Nono Siwa was concentrating on reading the information and was very impatient to be interrupted. Nono, your universal points for this month have been put into your card, came the voice of his father Rondo. Got it, Nono Siwa's tone softened slightly. He signed up for the assessment just when he needed money, and he also happened to be short of money to buy something he valued a few days ago. Father Rondo coughed a few times and left to rest. Nono Siwa stood up, walked to the door, opened the door and took a look. On the stool next to the door, there was a white card with blue electronic numbers faintly flashing on it. He picked it up and wiped it with his finger, and suddenly several numerical changes flashed on the card. Why is it so small? Nono's face suddenly changed. How can I get enough for such a small amount? He glanced at his parents' room, his expression ugly. Bang. Slamming the door hard, Nono returned to the computer angrily. He is not willing to give in. Compared with those classmates, his family background is not generally poor, and even those classmates are much better off than him. There is nothing that can be done about it. Families that have access to mechas are naturally not bad. There are too few students like him who jump into the Dragon Gate by chance. Boom. Suddenly there was a burst of thunder outside, the thunder was rolling and the window lattice rattled slightly. At the window, the black curtains were blown up by the wind, blocking Nono's eyes and clinging directly to his body. It's so windy, he quickly stood up and closed the window. Whoosh! A bit of black light suddenly flew in from the window, and rushed into the room from the angle where he was blocked by the curtains. It suddenly stuck to him and disappeared. What bug? Nono was startled. He closed the window and took a closer look at himself. He seemed to feel something hit him just now. It seemed to be a small bug. After checking up and down and finding nothing, he returned to his seat and sat down again. But the strange thing is that he himself didn't notice that a trace of small blood vessels appeared faintly on his face, covering his face like a blood-red network, which was very scary. Nono just stared at the computer screen intently without any distraction. Fortunately, the bloodshot streaks on his face only lasted for a short while before disappearing into the skin again. The next day, the basic training ground of Black Pen Academy. In the black sand field, two gray humanoid mechas stood facing each other, with red lights flashing around them, which were surveillance detectors. Surrounded by red light, the two mechas looked unusually calm. He looks like a fat gray man with a big belly, and there are snorting sounds from behind him from time to time. The mecha is more than 5 meters tall, and there is a faint glass window in the metal belly in the middle. You can see that there is a boy of 17 or 18 sitting inside. Today's fifth assessment, get ready, a bearded man shouted loudly at the edge of the venue. He was wearing a green peaked cap and had dark skin. He looked weather-beaten and was in his 30s or 40s. He was tall, burly, and powerful. Standing next to the man were a dozen young people of the same age of 17 or 18, including both men and women, all of whom were wearing the uniforms of the Black Pen Academy. Shooting training protection has been activated. Unrelated personnel are asked to exit the dangerous area of the venue. A sweet mechanical female voice echoed above the venue. The man glanced at the students inside the two mechas. There are disability standards for the formal assessment, so be careful, he said loudly, his voice full of anger. Seeing the two people in the mecha making no problem gestures, he nodded. Raise your hands high, and then swipe downwards. Start. Woo. Two dull engine sounds were heard. The two mechas on the field started almost at the same time, quickly pulled out a small gray-white pistol from behind, and pointed it at each other. The bearded man next to him nodded and began to explain to the students around him. The action is good. Did you see the gray firearms in their hands? This is a reduced-scale magneto-optical cannon. Now it is just a simple magneto-optical gun. As a test, a real magneto-optical cannon is not needed, but although this magneto-optical gun does not have the same, it has lethality, but it also simulates the recoil of a magneto-optical cannon, which is very cost-effective for training. The students beside him nodded repeatedly. Does the teacher think Nono Siwa can succeed in the assessment this time? Asked a girl with brown curly hair and an ordinary face and slightly dark skin. Mia, are you friends with him? Right, the teacher glanced at her. This depends on his own performance, but the previous assessments were pretty good, and the chance of passing this time is very high. Nono is third in our class. I didn't expect that. He is now in second grade and has started to apply for first-level subjects. It's really amazing, a boy next to Mia whispered. If you work hard, you will get there one day, the teacher smiled with satisfaction. Before he finished speaking, two mechas on the field moved suddenly and fired at the same time. Two red sparks flashed at the muzzle of the gun, but both mechas seemed to miss and missed each other. Instead, he was severely pushed back by the huge recoil force. The two were like two gray beasts on the field, quickly moving in arcs to avoid the other side's possible aiming guns. For a while, the sky was filled with dust, and only the violent whine of the engine kept coming. The magneto-optical bullets they fired, after missing, hit the field behind them directly in the air, and were immediately stopped by a transparent ripple barrier. In a mecha, Nono Siwa held the joystick with a ferocious face, and the other hand quickly clicked the dense buttons on the console. In contrast to the mecha's flexible dodging posture, his hand movements in controlling the mecha were not very fast at all. He did not control many of the movements at all, and the mecha dodged on its own. At this time, there was a small silver-white crescent placed next to the mecha control console. The crescent moon glowed slightly with a layer of pale white light. It seemed that something was flashing inside it, and there was a vague clicking sound of parts grinding together. Voice. I have a trump card. Ha ha ha. Nono Siwa would become extremely irritable every time he sank into the mecha, which was completely different from his usual taciturn appearance. It was as if all his usual repression had burst out here. The circular screen in front of him was shaking violently, and the mecha automatically avoided the shots of the other mecha. The third time he fired, the accuracy was much better than the first two times. Nono had a look of satisfaction on his face. But controlling the mecha with consciousness has cost him a lot. Conscious control combined with manual assistance from the console is also the most popular control method now. But for him, the load is still very heavy. After all, the mecha moves and turns quickly, and the huge inertia generated must be borne by the driver himself. He didn't notice at all that the crescent moon at his hand had cracks appearing as the mecha changed directions at high speed. The temperature inside it is getting higher and hotter. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 769. Nono was still immersed in the shooting game of capturing his opponents and didn't feel anything strange at all. The little crescent moon he got was actually just an auxiliary controller part inside a high-end mecha. The energy inside it was originally insufficient. After such a long period of use and idleness, the energy inside was almost exhausted. In addition, it lacked a heat dissipation device, and the high temperature generated by the crescent moon could not be dissipated, and finally the crescent moon slowly began to crack. Click. Suddenly there was a crisp sound, but it was immediately drowned in the beeping mechanical sound in the cabin. Nono noticed nothing at all. He did not notice at all that the small crescent moon on the side had completely dimmed at this time, no longer the same as before. A flashing white light. The mecha rolled to the right to avoid the opponent's fourth shot. Nono took a short rest and saw the opponent's mecha fine-tuning its muzzle again. He immediately recognized this as a secondary supplementary shooting technique, but he did not panic at all. At this time, his control speed was too late to respond to the subsequent follow-up attack. His real level is just entering the basic level. At such times, he always uses UIA's automatic control to assist in avoidance. His finger was already pressed on the button to fire the magneto-optical gun, waiting to dodge the opponent's shot and then fight back. Suddenly he realized something was wrong. Why didn't the mecha move? What's going on? He suddenly saw the opponent's gun pointed back at him, but the mecha still didn't move, and he suddenly panicked. Glancing at the little crescent moon, I immediately saw that the crescent moon was completely cracked, and there was no longer any light inside. No. My crescent moon! He yelled suddenly, with incomparable fear in his eyes. If the magnetic light gun hit the cockpit accidentally, he would be crippled even if he wasn't careful. He wanted to reach out and grab Crescent Moon, but the intense fear that suddenly surged inside his body prevented him from moving at all. His whole body was so stiff that he could hardly move his fingers. But at this moment, the muzzle of the gun is getting lower and lower, and the finger of the mecha in the distance is already pulling the trigger. I don't want to die. No. Don't. Nono finally broke down and cried, tears and snot streaming down his face. If you don't want to die, then give your body to me, a voice echoed from the bottom of his heart. No one could see that Ñaño's face suddenly swelled with countless blood vessels. The large blood vessels were like a network and instantly covered the face, making it look extremely terrifying. A flash of black flashed across his deep blue eyes. Boom! Ñaño felt his head jolt, and his extremely frightened consciousness was finally able to satisfy his will. He escaped from the frightening situation in front of him and fell directly into the unusually peaceful darkness. In just an instant, he completely lost consciousness. He was satisfied and finally out of danger, but he didn't know that after this sinking, he would never have the chance to wake up. The changes in the depths of the soul are extremely complex, but the changes in the outside world only last for a moment. Nono's eyes suddenly opened, and a little darkness suddenly appeared in the middle of his pupils. At this moment, the fear on his face completely disappeared, replaced by a faint expression of extreme calm. Bang! The magneto-optical gun fired. The red fire flashed away, and the gray bullet from the gun flew straight towards the cockpit of the mecha. That's wrong. As soon as Garen accepted this body, he felt something was wrong. His soul power was tightly imprisoned in his body, unable to exert its power at all. And this is not the most troublesome. the most dangerous thing is that the body structure and genes of the humans here are actually different from the bodies in his previous 2 reincarnations. Completely different. As soon as it took over the body, a tearing pain suddenly burst out from inside the body. It was a run-in between an overly powerful soul and a completely incompatible body. This kind of running in meant that he hadn't completely connected to the nerves in his body, and it was extremely difficult to even move. There were still waves of severe pain that penetrated into the bone marrow all over his body, as if some drill was constantly drilling into the bones. Garen's soul tried its best to slow down the magneto-optical gun bullets he saw in his eyes. He could only barely connect to his 5 senses, but at this moment it was too late. The magneto-optical gun is about to hit the cockpit. Once hit, the body he has not mastered yet will be severely damaged immediately. It takes a lot of soul power to occupy a body, and once it is occupied, it cannot be replaced. Otherwise, the large amount of soul power spent previously will be in vain. In his current state, he can no longer withstand such consumption, otherwise the soul seed will be in danger of collapse. And the most important point is that once he takes over the body, it is equivalent to obtaining a legal identity in this world. When the legal identity dies, he must follow legal steps and is likely to be forcibly decomposed by this world or even sent back again. Mother River is also possible. What to do? Numerous thoughts were racing in Garen's mind. He never expected that there would be an incompatible reaction between body and soul. He originally thought that he could take over the body at the critical moment when he was weak and frightened, and he could easily solve the problem, but he didn't. I thought this would happen. A strong sense of threat rushed over his face. It was absolutely impossible for this body with no foundation in secret martial arts to withstand such a powerful hot weapon. On the field of the 2 mechas, the one on the left raised his hand to shoot, while the one on the right was motionless and suddenly became completely stiff. The originally smooth evasive action actually froze in an instant. Bang! Gunfire rang out. The students standing next to the instructor couldn't help but exclaimed when they saw this scene. Everyone's face showed nervousness and their eyes were wide open. What's going on? Why did Nono stop? Is there something wrong with the mecha? It's over, either seriously injured or directly killed. No one expected that such a change would happen, and even the teachers opened their mouths. Although Blackpan Academy has always managed the school with the cruel rules of survival of the fittest, a murder really occurred. If it was a problem with the mecha, even he would have to suffer heavy penalties. Moreover, Nono is one of the best students in his class and one of the 3 heroes. If something happens to him, it will be a serious blow to his class. But it's too late now, no one can do anything. At this moment, even if he was ordered to stop immediately, it would be too late. Next to her, Mia covered her mouth and looked horrified, not knowing what to do. At this time, on the field, on the curled right arm of Nono's mecha, the magnetic light gun in his hand actually slightly adjusted the muzzle, and also pulled the trigger. Bang! At this moment, 2 bullets passed by each other, and the huge recoil force caused Nono's mecha to vibrate and deflect. One after another, the 2 mechas were shot almost at the same time. The examiner who shot did not dodge because he was stunned, but Nanosawa's mecha was definitely hit. After 2 muffled sounds, a small hole was penetrated into the 2 mechas at the same time. A gray, palm-length bullet was embedded in the hole, and green smoke continued to float out. The bullets continued to rotate, getting slower and slower, and almost penetrated half of the mecha. However, Nanosawa's mecha also moved away from the cockpit due to the huge backlash, and was shot in the shoulder. Although the mecha was directly paralyzed, the man was fine after all. Everyone on the side breathed a sigh of relief. This accident was so frightening that it almost made everyone's hearts unbearable. It's too dangerous. The teacher with a beard took a long breath. Wiped the sweat from his forehead. Nono Siwa was an elite student in his class, and he had high hopes for him. If something happened directly here. Not good. The energy module of the mecha on the other side was hit, a student yelled. The beard suddenly raised his heart to his throat again. When he saw the situation of the other mecha, his expression almost became distorted. Hurry up and save people, he shouted. At this time, the other mecha exploded with a bang, and half of its body was covered in flames. The pilot inside did not know whether he was alive or dead. Garen was sitting in the cabin, covered in sweat. Under the surface of his skin, his muscles and nerves were twisting and spasming, sending waves of severe pain into his brain. Completely different. This body is not. The bodies of everyone here are completely different. The structure is completely different. His heart felt cold. If not for the last moment, he directly pushed out all of Nono's soul, using his soul as the final energy source to slightly control the mecha with his consciousness. It was really over just now. Once he loses his body, his efforts in the previous world will definitely be ruined, and his soul seed will definitely be destroyed. But the current situation is also very bad. The body still has violent rejection reactions from time to time. This is still the best body for him to search for a suitable body after entering this planet. But who would have thought that the deep genes of the body are completely different from the previous body? Although he is slowly using his soul to forcefully adjust and twist his body, he will not be able to use his body flexibly in a short period of time. His body is stiff and unable to move. He is almost like a living dead and can only barely blink his eyes. It was because of the forceful movement of his body at that moment that Nono's body was even more traumatized and a large number of nerves were damaged. The situation was very bad. To put it simply, he is no different from a vegetable now. And even if you master the body, there will still be a long process of genetic adjustment and adaptation. Moreover, Garen felt that this cosmic world seemed to be stronger than the vampire world, and seemed to have extremely strong rejection and suppression of any non-homogeneous matter. He had already felt this when he was looking for the body in the soul state. Also, from the remaining memories of Nono's soul fragment, he saw that the so-called consciousness that controls the mecha is actually a special force generated by the exercise and strengthening of the human body here, or a special energy field. It is fundamentally different from his soul power and mental power. It is a brand new force field that is higher than mental attention. Now we're in trouble. Feeling the strangeness in his body, his heart became sinking. Because he cannot completely guarantee whether the body can completely recover. If it cannot recover. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 770. When everyone scrambled to rescue the pilots from the two mechas, both of them were unable to move. Garen's whole body was twitching, his eyes were closed, and his whole body seemed to be convulsing. He looked extremely terrifying. The other blue-haired boy was covered in burns and charred black, and he had completely fallen into a coma and was unconscious. Both of them were in extremely serious condition. The bearded teacher knew that something was in trouble at the first sight and immediately contacted the hospital. Soon the hospital ambulance arrived and sent the two people out. All the remaining students watched the ambulance leave. Only a few people got into the car with the instructors to escort them, and some people went to notify the school leaders and record the status of the disability accident. This kind of disability is not uncommon in the academy, but someone must come to determine whether it is a mecha accident. If it is a mecha accident, it is extremely rare in the entire school. I really don't know why Nanosawa's mecha suddenly stopped moving. If it hadn't been like this problem wouldn't have occurred in this assessment. Who knows? Maybe Nono himself is suddenly ill. No way, I went through a thorough physical examination when I entered the school. The students in each class discussed quietly and spontaneously dispersed to their dormitories. The assessment teachers have all left, and naturally the rest of today's assessments have also been cancelled. One of the white-haired boys stood for a while frowning in the direction of the ambulance before slowly leaving. He is one of the top 3 in Class C5, Fay Bailey, and is the perennial number 1 in the class. Almost no one can shake his status. He has completely seen that the second place is still far behind him, and he is confident that he will maintain this gap until graduation. But he couldn't see clearly the third-placed Nono Siwa. He was taciturn and there were only a few people in the class who were close to him, so he couldn't get much information. But it's meaningless now. If it's just this level, there's nothing to be afraid of, he muttered to himself, turned around and walked towards the simulation training ground. White ceiling. Garen opened his eyes, and the first thing he saw was pure white. There are dark blue fluorescent electronic circuits flashing faintly on the ceiling, which has a sense of technology. You're awake. He heard a voice coming from his left ear. The voice was not in any language, but a weird language with a lot of retroflex sounds. Fortunately, he had absorbed Nono's language memory and could still understand it. He remembered it as the federal lingua franca. The voice came from a man, a bit rough. Garen tried hard to turn his head and look at the speaker, but the stiff muscles and nerves in his body didn't obey his orders at all. Then he saw a muscular man with a beard standing up, a large face appearing above him, looking down at him. The man was around 30 or 40 years old, with a slight frown on his brow. How do you feel? Are you okay? Garen tried hard to open his mouth. He knew this man. He was the administrator of the class where this body was studying. His name was Ham. He wanted to answer out loud, but unfortunately, his facial nerves were no longer under his control, so he could only blink his eyes and make a hiccup sound in his throat. Can't even speak, a trace of disappointment flashed in the man's eyes. The doctor diagnosed you with extensive nerve damage throughout your body and muscle spasms. You can only relax by forcibly injecting sedatives. Galen huffed a few times, but was still speechless and could only helplessly stay still. Brother Nyanyo, are you okay? Came another girl's voice from the side. Soon the teacher turned Garen's face slightly with his hand, and he could immediately see the situation on the left side. 4 male and female students were sitting next to the hospital bed. The one who spoke was a beautiful girl with a delicate appearance and a good figure. The girl had short red hair and was looking at him with concern. Fragments of memories suddenly appeared in Garen's mind. This girl's name is Lisa, and she is the current girlfriend of his body Nono Siwa. There were 3 other people beside Lisa, including Nono's friend Air, her partner and friend Mia, and one person she didn't seem to recognize. 3 students wearing white on blue striped school uniforms sat on the edge, all looking at me with concern. He can't speak. His nerves are damaged and it's very troublesome, the teacher whispered from the side. Did the doctor say what caused it? Lisa asked. I don't know, Teacher Ham shook his head. Garen listened to the 2 talking to the side, and also quickly sorted out the remaining memories of Nono, because at the last moment, Nono's soul was forced out by him to explode with maximum power and control the mecha, causing the soul conflict to tear apart. Most of the fragments disappeared and dissipated, leaving only a small part that was absorbed by him, so the memory he got was incomplete. Judging from the conversations between several students and instructor Ham, his condition is very serious and he will need at least a year of training to repair the damaged nerves and muscles after surgery. Garen carefully observed the people who followed him. He knew from Nanosawa's memory that Nono's only friends were these few. Lisa is his girlfriend, and Al is his good friend and sparring partner, and they have the best relationship. Mia is his desk mate and duo partner, and the 2 have always had a good relationship. The remaining person was not very impressive, probably because the relationship was not that good. Listening to the chats of several people, Garen gradually understood the condition of this body. Nono Siwa himself is taciturn and has few friends in the class. The only people he has good relations with are a few people here. He always looks cold and arrogant and keeps strangers away. This is actually concealing his own crescent moon secret. But in the eyes of outsiders, he is cold and arrogant. He is now inexplicably seriously injured and is almost in a vegetative state. But the teacher also said that there should be a way to speed up the repair, but in this case, he would have to owe the college a large amount of medical expenses. There was also the pilot of the mecha from the opposite side who was injured at that time. His injuries were also serious and he also needed a large amount of medical expenses. Notify your family. Teacher Ham made the final call and stood up. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. He seemed to be in a bad mood and strode out of the ward, and soon there was the sound of a door closing around the corner. Only a few friends were left sitting in the room. As soon as the teacher left, the remaining people became a little restless and didn't know what to say. No, please have a good rest. I have something to do and will come see you later. Girlfriend Lisa gritted her teeth, stood up and whispered. His cheeks were red and his head was bowed. Soon the door closed again. The unfamiliar student also stood up and left silently. Al and Mia were the only ones left in the room. Air had short brown hair and was an ordinary boy who looked a little soft. He quietly took out an apple and started peeling it. Nanyo, don't worry about your cultivation. With your level, you can catch up quickly when you get better. Don't worry. Garen blinked in response. Mia sighed. Your parents are almost here. They will be at the hospital soon. Garen continued to blink. Several people were speechless immediately. They just sighed. As one of the elite students, Nyanyo suddenly encountered such a dilemma. However, they were both Nyanyo's best friends and believed that he could reply quickly. Even if a large amount of money from Chien Academy can be paid off in the future. The two of them sat there bored and started chatting about why something like that happened during the assessment. Garen was lying on the hospital bed, slowly closing his eyes and pretending to be asleep. Soon he vaguely heard the sound of this body's parents arriving. Not only his parents, but also his younger brothers and sisters came, and there were uncontrollable sobs in the ward. Nyanyo's family is from an ordinary family, and it is already very difficult for him to go to college. It was only through the help of his younger brothers and sisters that he had to pay for the tuition. Now he has to spend such a large sum of money, which makes the two adults have more wrinkles on their faces. His eyes became darker and darker. Don't worry, Nono is very capable and so good. Isn't it easy to become a mecha master and make a lot of money in the future? Mia hurriedly comforted her. Air also echoed, explaining to Nyanyo's parents how a mecha master can make money. He can earn at least millions a year, with high salary and benefits, and he can pay off any debt he owes in a year. It's nothing. This made Nono's parents feel better. On the way to Galen, he opened his eyes and a few times, which was considered as a greeting to his parents, younger brothers, and sisters. Since you occupy this body, you naturally have to accept this identity. Next, the nurse came in to wipe Galen's body, and everyone in the ward went out to wait. Garen finally had a chance to look at his current body. He closed his eyes and let his energy sink into his body. The entire blood, meridians, and organs of the body are all present in his soul. After carefully checking them one by one, he couldn't help but sigh. This difference is a bit big. On the surface, it looks similar to the body of the previous two lives, but in fact it is completely different. The subtle cell mechanisms are completely different. His soul was conceived in the body of the previous two lives. Now it occupies this body and has a strong incompatibility reaction. This is the fundamental reason why he still cannot control his body until now. His two soul seeds are constantly emitting aura to transform this body, but unfortunately, the soul seeds were consumed too much in the Mother River, and now they can only transform slowly, at an extremely slow speed. Garen cast his gaze on his attribute bar. Sure enough, his body had changed and his attribute bar had also changed drastically. Nono Siwalin strength 0.5, agility 1.1, constitution 0.3, intelligence 1.3, potential 0%, soul limit 40. Sure enough, the soul limit has been increased because of the soul seed. This is the only good news. Garen felt slightly comforted and continued to look down. Potential, Void Stalker. Soul Seed, Northern Halberd, Cold Flame, True Water, Evil Technique, Holy Phoenix Magic Book. Military, none. Seeing the secret martial arts column instantly return to 0, Garen felt helpless in his heart. Although he knew that condensing the soul seed meant condensing all his life's cultivation into it, leaving nothing behind, but doing this twice in a row also made him not an ordinary person. Headache. He began to examine the details of the current body and the circulatory functions of each system. As a martial arts master, he naturally has a very strong vision, and he quickly came to a preliminary conclusion. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 771. This body is not suitable for practicing advanced martial arts at all. Garen's heart sank. The body structure is different, which makes many secret martial arts unsuitable for practice. To modify it into a sophisticated martial art suitable for this body, it takes too much energy and time, and it is simply not something he can afford to waste now. He can only practice some low-level secret martial arts that are not very good, the kind of secret martial arts that train martial arts with external skills and do not involve the control of chi and blood. These martial arts that do not involve active control of chi and blood can basically only be regarded as third-rate secret martial arts, not even as good as Baiun secret martial arts. Unless this body is completely transformed into my previous structure, Garen thought about his future path. This world looked far more tyrannical than the previous ones. When he shuttled into the planet, the huge invisible protective belt he saw was far inferior to even the space station of the Earth era. From Nono's remaining memories, he learned that this planet seemed to belong to a huge country called the Mother Star Federation. This federation even owned more than one planet, with a total of more than 45 planets. It was a veritable behemoth. Compared with the previous worlds, it is not a force of the same level. Outside the home Star Federation, there are other star-level countries, which are also countries with multiple planets at the same level. Most of these countries belong to a huge country called the Galactic Alliance, and the two have been fighting against the Phoenites for thousands of years. Under this kind of confrontation, there are also many neutral countries outside the Mother Star Federation and the Galactic Alliance, thousands of them large and small, supporting the inheritance between the balance of the three behemoths. The big ones of these countries have 5 or 6 planets, and the small ones have only 1 or 2. They rely on different specialties to survive continuously. And the body he turned around was a citizen living in one of the behemoths of the Mother Star Federation. However, the situation has become increasingly unstable in recent years. The battles and wars between the three major forces have lasted for too long, resulting in various domestic deficits and increasing public anger. After an unusually powerful financial crisis that swept all forces, the system was finally close to collapse. The credibility of the national government was completely lost, and the three major forces fell into civil strife. The major fleets are divided into one side, forming an almost warlord structure. The planet where Nono is located is one of the planets under the control of the Mother Star Federation, but now it has completely fallen into chaos, with major forces occupying the territory and developing themselves wantonly. The place where they live is within the sphere of influence controlled by the Black Pen Academy. It's really a chaotic place. It was also the first time for Garen to come to this kind of world. It was huge, vast, and vast. Taking the planet as a unit, some powerful top fleets even have extremely terrifying Star Destroyer cannons, which can destroy a planet in an instant. This kind of world is a world where technology has reached its peak. Garen knew that even if Nadia came, she would have to put her tail away and be an honest person. There was such a terrifying weapon as the Star Destroyer cannon. Even if he can practice secret martial arts, relying on secret martial arts to become rampant is probably delusional. He calculated that even if he reached the soul limit of 40 points, he could at most be able to withstand a large-yield nuclear bomb and a hydrogen bomb, and still couldn't resist a Star Destroyer cannon that could destroy the planet. The gap between this was almost as big as heaven and earth. I'm afraid, let alone the Star Destroyer cannon, there must be many weapons in this world that can hurt his extreme body. A terrifying civilization capable of ruling dozens of planets cannot be simple. It seems that we can't directly use the secret martial arts method. If we want to gather soul seeds in this world, we should try the power system here. Garen began to recall the remaining fragments in Nono's mind, and retrieved all the information about the power system here. Unfortunately, firstly, Nono was too weak to have access to high-level information. Instead, his soul was torn into pieces, leaving only a few fragments, and no content could be seen at all. Only some information about the grading of assessment subjects remains. Mecha Masters are advanced warriors who can control mecha battles through their consciousness. Powerful Mecha Masters can use mechas to display extremely terrifying combat effectiveness. There was even a record of one mecha defeating an entire fleet during the battle. This is the ultimate in personal heroism. Garen browsed through the memory fragments carefully. A powerful top-level mecha master, coupled with a powerful top-level mecha, equals a strategic existence that is close to invincibility. The development of powerful weapons with high lethality and small size has made mechas become terrifying war weapons that surpass battleships. Various mecha schools have emerged. Each school is famous for its different mecha fighting styles and special abilities. Among them, the inheritance of Black Pen Academy. The school is famous for its suspended black disc as a high-speed cutting weapon, and it belongs to the pure long-range attack school. Garen carefully looked at the remaining information. He vaguely felt that the consciousness of this world seemed to be of great benefit to him in condensing the third soul seed. It might be the fundamental way for him to condense the third soul seed. According to Nono's memory, the development of consciousness in this cosmic space-time has reached a vast and terrifying level. Countless brilliant people have left their names in history and gone further and further on this road. According to legend, there is also a school that can greatly enhance ordinary mechas with consciousness, achieving the effect of forcibly increasing the power of mechas. There are even schools that cultivate the consciousness of terrifying special abilities, so that mechas have some weird special abilities. The power produced by the combination of consciousness mecha and mecha master is not just as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. There are even rumors that there are terrifying forbidden mechas with the power to destroy stars. In this world, consciousness is everything. It is an invisible and extraordinary power that anyone can master. The difference lies in the quality of talent. Garen understood. Although there were not many fragments left by Nono, the amount of information still shocked him. The power of this world's universe is infinitely greater than that of his previous worlds. Consciousness is like a special extraordinary power that can only be used through consciousness mechas or equipment, and all mecha masters are tyrannical beings who constantly tap into powerful consciousness. Galen became more and more wary. If this world has such a thorough study of something as nihilistic as consciousness, it is very likely that it will also study further souls. It seems that we must be more careful in the future. Fortunately, no abnormalities were found in this reincarnation. With his strength, even at his peak, let alone me seeing, even a territory as big as me state was far inferior. Perhaps Nadia could only reach this point when her full strength exploded. This is Legion-level strength. Garen even doubted whether there was an existence in this world that reached the level of the ancient Yinduo Demon King. But fortunately, it's just a legend. No, the Star Destroyer may be even more powerful than the Demon King. It's just that the system is different. Garen secretly compared it in his mind. I am more and more in awe of this world. It seems that we can only move forward along the system of this world. The top priority now is to repair the body first. Forget about transformation, I will try my best to make the body adapt to my soul and eliminate the rejection reaction. Garen made up his mind and began to control the breath of the soul seed with all his strength to let his body adapt. On the surface, it means closing your eyes and resting to sleep. After the nurse wiped his body, he left with water. Then his parents and younger siblings came in and whispered for a while, so as not to disturb him, they also left the ward. Seeing this, Air and Mia also got up and left. They just quietly put some money on the bedside as a way of supporting themselves. Garen was still immersed in the process of adjusting his body, but the nerve damage was severe and it took a long time. If he wanted to repair himself without losing his soul seed, he would have to wait at least 5 years, which was too long. So now he is mainly waiting for repair surgery. The medical technology in this era should be very high-end, and he must have a good technical foundation for nerve damage. As long as the nerve repair surgery can be successful, he is sure to shorten the time and completely adapt to this body within half a year without any sequelae. Although it is not possible to practice advanced secret martial arts, some pure mental exercises and simple physical and external exercises can still be screened out. Time passes day by day. Ham, the instructor, visited Galleon a few more times. He didn't say much, but just asked him to rest in peace and recuperate, waiting for the operation. His parents went out to work, and his younger brothers and sisters often came to take care of him, deliver meals, help clean the ward, etc. This also allowed Galen to see the unity of this family. But what makes him a little helpless is that his younger brothers and sisters seem to be a little afraid of him. Although he can't move now, he can still see that Nono Siwa has been gaining power for a long time, making his 2 younger brothers and sisters feel timid. He couldn't speak now and could only lie down. Neither of them dared to look into his eyes. Several friends also come often. Mia came several times, bringing some change each time. One time she even brought a universal point card. Normally, only when the amount exceeds 1000 will the universal point card be used to store it. For an ordinary adult, this is the entire income for a month, and for a Black Disc Academy student, it is at least the entire expenses for a month. But Mia put it down and left without saying a word. Later, Garen found out that this card was the money that Al and Mia had saved together. This made Garen have a slightly different view of the original Nono Siwa. With such a friend, even though he wanted to shut him down, he had some bad deeds. It won't be any worse. But the so-called girlfriend Lisa has disappeared. Except for the first time, she has never been here since. I heard from Air that she is now in love with another boy. The time for surgery was getting closer. Black Disc Academy. The entire academy is dotted with tall metal buildings with black exterior walls. All the buildings are shaped like huge black discs, inserted upside down into the earth. From a distance, the academy looks like a flat white area densely packed with dozens of black discs inserted upside down. These plates are large and have small doors at the bottom for entry and exit. People on motorcycles and motorcycles of all colors flow between the black plates, bustling with people. The college was built at the foot of a flattened mountain. Parked on the mountain is a huge black battleship with a black logo on it. At the foot of the mountain is a large area of college territory. The front tip of the battleship poked out of the edge of the mountain and hung over the academy, casting a large shadow. At this time, there is a room at the front of the battleship. In the black room, a circle of people sat around a silver round table. They were all wearing black uniforms and were teachers and instructors of the college. Sitting on the main seat is the chief and deputy instructor. Regarding the 5 cases of publicly funded medical expenses in our department this semester, one of which is that of student Nono Siwa, I think it is not the responsibility of the college. There is no problem with the mecha and the venue. The college has no obligation to bear the cost of surgery and compensation. The instructor was a strong man with tanned skin. He glanced at everyone present when he spoke. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 772. This is an independent meeting of the Mecha Combat Department of the college. It is an organization that specializes in managing the affairs of the Combat Department, one of the more than 10 branches of Black Pen Academy. It is basically a grassroots meeting, but it has the power of life and death to decide on funds. No Siwa. After testing the mecha, it was found that the mecha malfunction did not cause the accident, and there was no problem with the site identification. We should not be held responsible. A middle-aged woman wearing glasses nodded in agreement. I don't think it's appropriate. Teacher Ham frowned and said. According to the regulations of the General Hospital, the college departments should bear the basic medical expenses for injuries sustained during the course. This is the basic insurance for students who pay so much tuition every year. But now our department is short of funds. Look at the nerve repair surgery written in this document. The instructor frowned and picked up a piece of white paper and glanced at it. The cost of this surgery is not small. If paid in full, it may affect the payment of performance bonuses this year. The instructor is right. The liability claim is not on our side anyway. It really shouldn't be our fault. I agree with the instructor's proposal. Everyone present here is the faculty and instructors of the department, and they are the most basic teachers in the college. When they heard that their own interests were involved, they immediately spoke one after another. Teacher Ham looked a little ugly. Isn't this right? It's a blatant violation of the regulations of the General Hospital. Regulations are dead, but people are alive. Without funding regulations, they are just a piece of waste paper. It's not that we don't do anything, it's just that we don't have the ability. The deputy instructor shrugged helplessly. That's right, Teacher Ham, you can't affect the lives of everyone here just because of a student in your class, right? Someone said, dissatisfied. Harm glanced around, and finally his eyes fell on the face of the instructor Dylan. He was hurt during the course assessment. Could it be that the college actually planned to turn a blind eye and just let him fend for himself? Wouldn't this chill all the students in school? He said loudly. Instructor Chief Dylan frowned slightly. Ham, you have to remember, we are the Black Disc Academy, Han Xin? What is Han Xin? There are people who want to get in with their heads sharpened. If Han Xin people get out by themselves, it will be over. Survival of the fittest, natural selection, this is the highest motto of the main school. I don't agree with your statement. Ham's voice became louder. Since we signed the enrollment contract, we have to bear some responsibility for the students. Even basic personal safety cannot be guaranteed. If the students of the academy know about it, the consequences will be disastrous. He tried to continue to persuade the instructor. Okay, needless to say, this time the funding has been decided. The instructor Dylan raised his hand and exchanged glances with several conference representative teachers nearby. Instructor, Ham stood up suddenly. Needless to say, Dylan glanced at him lightly. The following is the second item. There is an instruction from above. Recently, criminals wanted by the Federation may pass by our black disc. When everyone returns, please inform the students to be careful when going out. Go to less troublesome places. Regarding the establishment of a branch on the East Campus, the last plan can be put forward. Ham was furious. He scanned the whole room and found that several teachers who were familiar with him on weekdays avoided his sight. Suddenly my heart trembled. Good, very good. With anger in his heart, he turned around and left. Hospital corridor. We can't delay the operation fee. The doctor frowned and said to the instructor Ham, it's already been 2 weeks. If we delay it any longer, it will be too late even if the operation is performed. Hasn't your funding arrived yet? Harm looked gloomy and nodded. If this continues, the situation will probably get worse. If the child's nerves cannot be repaired in time, he may even have problems walking in the future. The doctor became impatient. At first, we agreed to prepare for the surgery for the sake of your Black Bank Academy, but now it has been so long and the payment has not been received. The time for our pre-ordered drugs is also coming. What do you want us to do? Ham was silent. He had been teaching for so many years, and the most promising students in the class were Faye Bailey, who was ranked first, and Nono Siwa, who was ranked third. Now, an outstanding student who might become a real mecha master in the future might have to pay for surgery at any time. And if he was delayed for a lifetime, even he would feel very uncomfortable. This kind of encounter reminded him vaguely of his own experience. At that time, no one gave him support, and he had to rely on himself to survive. But in the end, his life was saved, but his original consciousness was severely damaged. It dropped by more than half, and in the end he had no choice but to retire and come to the college to become an ordinary teacher. Trust me, he took a deep breath and suddenly made up his mind. The money will come out soon. I'll go and urge it. It should be in place tomorrow. Are you sure? The doctor didn't believe it. Okay. Get ready for the operation. Ham lit a cigarette and took a long drag. It's not the first time anyway, so what the hell? Wouldn't it be better to smoke less and save some money? He felt at ease. Okay, I'll trust you again. The doctor, who was also acquainted with him, nodded. Then I'll go and notify the operating room first. By the way, smoking is prohibited here. Good. Harm nodded. He put out his cigarette butt on the trash can next to him. Garin was lying in the ward, still unable to speak. He could only make aha sounds and blink his eyes, but he could do nothing else. The damage to this body was too deep to be repaired in a short time. Beside him, his younger brother was carefully peeling a white pear. Garin couldn't move, so he could only wait for the soul seed to repair his body naturally. Looking at the younger brother named Alan, his face now lost a lot of its original timidity, but had a little more confidence. Brother, you need to get well soon. You are hospitalized every day and the hospitalization expenses are very high. The family's income has been sluggish recently, the younger brother muttered in a low voice, like a housekeeper. This guy is only 14 or 15 years old, but he looks like he is stunted. He is only 12 or 13 years old. His black hair hangs down all day long, covering most of his face. He also likes to lower his head and wears large framed glasses. His appearance could not be clearly seen at all, and his skin looked sickly pale. He comes across as timid and not like a man at all. For this reason, he was often beaten and scolded by Nono Siwa, who disliked him for embarrassing him. But this younger brother never resists. Unexpectedly, the younger brother who was often bullied in the past is actually the one who takes care of him the most now. Even his other sister is far less caring than him. What's his name? Garin thought. Aaron? Karen? Or something else? He didn't absorb many soul fragments from Nono Siwa, so many things are unclear now. Just take something out of it every time the family comes over and the younger siblings are chatting. Boom, boom, boom. There was a knock on the door. Please come in. The younger brother stood up and whispered. With a hiss, the door opened slightly, and the teacher Ham walked in. We will prepare for the operation tomorrow, Nono, be prepared. He looked at Nono on the bed in a deep voice. Garin blinked to show that he understood. The college's medical expenses have been reimbursed successfully. There will still be a period of recovery after the operation. Recuperate in the hospital and don't think about anything else. With your progress, there is no need to worry about many things. Ham tried his best to keep his mind calm. His tone became softer, although he was indeed not very comforting. Thank you, Uncle Ham. The younger brother beside him quickly bowed to express his gratitude. He just spoke a little louder, but his face and neck were all red. Your name is Burin, good boy. Ham patted his brother on the shoulder and nodded. Okay, I have to go back to the academy first, so take good care of your brother. I know, Burin's voice was nodded. It's not okay if a man is too shy, Ham was amused by Burin. After Ham left, Burin closed the door and immediately let out an uncontrollable cheer. The cost of the surgery has finally come down, he returned to the hospital bed, thanks to Uncle Ham. Garin blinked in agreement. Brother, you will feel better soon, Burin said seriously. But when he saw Garin's eyes moving to stare at him, he suddenly shrank his head in fear, apparently recalling Nanosawa's bad temper in the past. After receiving this good news, Garin also breathed a sigh of relief. He can indeed heal this body, but the consumption of soul seeds is too great, the gain is not worth the loss, and it takes a long time. Now with the help of surgery, he should be able to restore health and control the body as quickly as possible. However, he also saw something from Teacher Ham's eyes just now. There seemed to be something hidden about the medical expenses. In the afternoon, my parents rushed back and paid the hospitalization fee with tired faces. They rested in the hospital bed for a while and told their younger brother Bolan to take good care of his brother. After learning that the surgery fee was reimbursed, the whole family was extremely happy and breathed a sigh of relief. The younger sister, on the other hand, seemed to be afraid of Nono and didn't come much. Her parents said she likes to run out recently and doesn't know what she is doing. They have been busy working overtime recently and don't have time to care about her. As long as she comes home on time to eat and sleep every day, everything is going in the right direction. At night, the cold moonlight shrouded the entire Hippan city in a silver veil. A night market street somewhere in Hippan city. Maglev cars kept passing by on the street, their lights flickering. Occasionally, you can see drunken men staggering around on the sidewalks on both sides, humming random songs. Between the black street buildings, a dozen black shadows can be vaguely seen fleetingly, jumping between the black buildings very quickly. Every time these black shadows fall, they will not leave any sound on the roof or building walls. They are just like spiders, gently falling and clinging to them, then gently falling off, jumping in another direction. They were flying across the sky, and no one noticed any trace of them from the pedestrians and vehicles below. Watch out for distractions. There was a voice in the ears of one of the jumping black figures. Mind yourself. It used the device on its hand to stick to the wall with one hand and looked around. After being ironed, he jumped suddenly and hit the glass window of the building opposite. Wow! A piercing alarm sounded suddenly, and red lights flashed across the entire floor. The black shadow rolled a few times to avoid the laser's red line scan, dodged a few times as lightly and silently as a civet cat, and came to a safe. He reached out and popped out a thin needle, stabbing it directly into the safe. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 773. With a bang, the cabinet opened, and it took out something from inside. Without looking, it suddenly backed away, flipped a few times, and jumped out of the broken glass again. The whole process took less than a minute. Amazing speed. I want to leave. A white shadow flew over with a strong wind. It turned out to be a white spider mecha more than 5 meters high. A man's voice came from inside. I've been chasing you for half a month. Let's see where you run this time. The voice in the mecha was a little angry. Want to catch me? Try. The black shadow let out a deep laugh and flipped more than 10 times in a row. It was as if it were on the ground on the sloping wall of the building and jumped directly onto the spider mecha. Snapped. He pressed something on top of the mecha's head, and the spider mecha didn't even have time to react. The reaction speed of the two is completely different. The spider mecha suddenly whined, as if its power was blocked and it couldn't move. Let's go. The black shadow jumped up in mid-air and said quickly into the headset. Several lasers drew red lines and passed through his side, almost shooting him through. It hit the wall of the building, leaving scorched black spots everywhere. Laugh. Tisk tisk tisk. The number of red lasers instantly increased, and a white spider mecha appeared on the far wall. All their eyes flashed red, and the lasers were emitted from there. Several black shadows rolled and flew out, dodging and jumping between buildings like a swing. In the interlacing dozens of red lights, it quickly disappeared into the darkness of the building. At the same time, the entire Black Pan City was filled with spider mechas chasing the black shadow. Black shadows quickly disappeared into the shadows and disappeared. Garen suddenly woke up from his sleep. There was darkness in front of him, and something seemed to be moving slowly outside the window of the ward. He turned his head hard, and suddenly a pair of eyes appeared beside his pillow, staring straight at him. "You can actually feel me," the owner of those eyes whispered. Only then did Garen realize that the other person was just clinging to the window of the ward and had not come in. It was just that his red eyes were big and bright, giving her a strange feeling of being close at hand. Interesting, the owner of the eyes was dressed in darkness and seemed to be moving slowly across the ward. He avoided so many people and the alarm device, but he didn't expect to be discovered by an ordinary patient inside. He hesitated for a moment, and then the whine of the police car was faintly heard downstairs, as well as the sound of the engine of the mecha. It was obvious that a large force was chasing him. Pushing the window gently, a black shadow rushed in through the window. He was just passing by here originally, but he didn't expect to find that there were patients here and that he could be found. Falling quietly on the ground without making any sound, he closed the window with his backhand, and a dark shadow stood in front of Garen's hospital bed. "Interesting, you can actually detect my movements." He glanced at the sign on the bedside. "Are the nerves severely damaged?" "Who is this guy?" Garen was lying on the hospital bed, not panicking at all, just staring at the other person quietly. Wearing a fish skin-like tight-fitting black dress, you can vaguely tell that it is a woman. She has a convex figure, a slender waist, and long legs. No hair or anything can be seen, and it is obviously covered with something. The face was also completely covered with a black scarf. "Where are your eyes looking?" Bang! Garen suddenly felt a pain in his head, and she lifted him up and pushed him hard to the ground. His head hit the hard ground with a muffled sound. This woman changed at her word and stepped hard on Garen. "Disgusting brat. Looks like I have to dig out those eyes of yours." Two black needles popped out from the fingertips of her right hand, and they aimed directly at Garen's eyes and stabbed them down. This woman, Garen was furious. What if his eyes were gouged out for no reason? His tongue flicked out. With a sneer, a mouthful of saliva suddenly shot out, making no sound, like an arrow, flying straight towards the woman's right eye. Seeking death, the woman actually avoided the saliva and her eyes became ferocious. But after all, her black needle deflected a little to avoid the saliva, and it sneered across Garen's face, leaving 2 deep blood marks. It was not just a needle, the edge was as sharp as a knife blade. With a hard kick on Garen's waist, the woman straightened up suddenly and took a few steps back. She looked back at the ceiling, and the saliva actually made a small dent on the ceiling. Although it was just a wooden material, hitting her eyeballs with such force would cause great damage. "I didn't expect that I could encounter strange things just by entering the ward." The woman carefully circled Garen, and after a little testing, she found that he really had no other means. Then he came closer again. A sharp elbow hit Garen in the lower abdomen. The beating made him curl up suddenly and his face turned pale. Another kick hit Garen's neck hard, almost suffocating him. "Move it again," the woman said bitterly. "Move it." A loud kick hit Garen's chest hard again. There was a crisp sound, and the sternum seemed to be broken. Garen was also furious. If he hadn't been unable to move, this woman would have been slapped to death by him. Bang! There was another muffled sound, and the woman kicked Garen hard in the stomach. The sirens below were getting louder, and it was clear that the search party was getting closer. Laugh. A red laser suddenly shot in from the window, accurately leaving a black mark on the woman's shoulder. Damn, the woman groaned in pain, and the black needle in her hand was about to plunge into Garen's eyes, but accidentally met Garen's eyes. Those eyes were like whirlpools, as dark blue as the sea, and there was a vague and inexplicable attraction to them. "I'll find you." The woman read the meaning from those eyes and was shocked. Tisk tisk tisk. 3 red lasers intertwined into a net and swept toward her. Without enough time to move, the woman suddenly flew up, bounced on the wall like a gecko, and suddenly crashed out of the window. There was a loud crash on the glass, and the black shadow disappeared in mid-air. The sound of pursuit quickly faded away. Garen was lying on the ground, covered in bruises, and his eyes were full of tiredness. Cough cough cough. He coughed. "If I destroy a soul seed because of this, I will make your life worse than death." Garen's eyes were fixed on the direction the woman was leaving. If he hadn't stabbed the woman at the last moment using some of Huan Lequan's eyewitness skills, the final result would have been really dangerous. "It's such a good start to be injured so badly when I first came to this world." Garen's eyes became deeper and deeper. That woman's eyes have been deeply remembered by him. The person who almost destroyed one of his soul seeds will have time to settle the accounts in the future. Outside the ward, there were finally sounds of footsteps, the door was opened, and security guards rushed in with doctors and nurses. "A patient is injured. Prepare for a comprehensive examination immediately," shouted the bedside doctor. In the dark night. Suburbs of Hipan City. Black shadows quickly shuttled and jumped in the dark night. From time to time, their bodies would twist and become invisible, as if disappearing into the air, and then suddenly appear again. There were more than 10 people in Haiying, and they quickly gathered in an abandoned factory on the outskirts of Hipan City. The factory was silent except for the occasional chirping of crickets. More than a dozen black figures gathered together and formed a circle. "Is everything okay?" a dark figure whispered. "This assessment is too simple. I just got the information casually." "It's completely meaningless," another dark figure said frivolously. She was a woman. "The goldfish is actually injured. Did you see that?" The goldfish was actually injured in such a pursuit. Another woman couldn't help laughing, as if she had seen something funny. The woman known as Goldfish stood in the queue without saying a word, but her red eyes became colder and colder. "I encountered a special accident." "You can't do it if you can't do it yourself. Why are you surprised?" "You should find a better excuse," the woman who laughed earlier said sarcastically. 15 goldfish mission points will be deducted. Is that okay?" the leading black shadow said without doubt. "No," the goldfish gritted its teeth. "Hey, are you unwilling to give in?" someone said in a strange tone. "If someone checks and discovers the genes of the blood samples you left behind during the real mission, then we will have no choice but to abandon you," the leading black shadow said lightly. "You have to understand. This level of punishment is to make you more capable. A deep understanding of the future." "I understand." Goldfish lowered his head and clenched his fists tightly. "Okay, this operation is disbanded. I will solve the goldfish issue separately through the above. Leave all the mission items to me." One by one, the black figures handed over everything they got. The operation started early. Galen lay on his back on the operating table, and the medicine in the anesthesia injection took effect quickly. He began to feel sleepy, looking at the dazzling operating lights above, and gradually fell into a deep sleep. Last night's accident left him with several more troublesome injuries, which could only be solved in this operation. "I don't know how long it took, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours." Garen slowly woke up and felt a tearing pain all over his body, most obvious in the bear's abdomen, and bursts of pain were felt throughout his body. This is the sequelae of the ultra-miniature robot operating inside your body. If you feel pain, it means that the nerve repair is successful. You should endure it. A calm man's voice came from beside the hospital bed. No. Garin nodded slightly, and then immediately realized that he could nod and speak. It seems that the effect is very good. It just needs some time for the nerves to recover from the wound. This is a male doctor. After asking Garin about his feelings in a low voice, he clearly told him what he should pay attention to. My parents, younger brothers, and sisters quickly wrote it down carefully and thanked the doctor again and again. Beside the hospital bed were Al and Mia, both of whom seemed to be waiting outside the operating room. You are lucky enough to survive safely when you encounter desperados. Mia shook her head with surprise. What does it mean to be lucky? This can be regarded as my ability. Garin was in a good mood, and it was rare for him to joke with Mia. I'll tell you something later. Mia nodded. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 774. After the doctor and others left and Galen's parents went out to work, Mia and the others whispered a few words and sat beside the hospital bed again. What do you want to tell me? Garen's body couldn't move yet, but the nerves in his head were not damaged. After all, it was the place protected by the soul seed. He was helped by Air beside him to lift his head and lean it on the cushion. Mia paused. Although the teacher didn't let me say it, you must know this matter sooner or later. Regarding your surgery fee this time. Oh, Garin frowned. Isn't the cost of this surgery reimbursed by the college? Sister Cole asked in confusion, which was also what several others wanted to ask. Mia shook her head slightly. No, she looked at Garin and the two younger siblings around her. It's not what you think. No, your medical expenses were actually advanced by the teacher, Mr. Ham, and the college did not apply for your expenses at all. Come down. Teacher Ham. Garin was slightly startled. For a moment, no one spoke. The younger brothers and sisters didn't know what to say, but Garin was never a person who showed his emotions. He just sat on the hospital bed and seemed to be thinking about something. No matter what he was thinking, Mia still planned to tell what she knew first. Air and I helped you ask at the academy. You could have applied for the surgery fee this time, but Oscar, the student who was injured by you, has family connections because you beat Oscar in the test in retaliation. It's a serious injury. Due to the college's regulations, although we can't deal with you directly, it's really easy to interfere with the application for medical expenses. She looked a little heavy and told everything she knew. The surgery fee is more than 1.5 million. The cost of nerve repair surgery is not cheap, Ayer said from the side, even Teacher Ham, who has a good income. Garin looked at Ayer and Mia beside him. These two people did have a very good relationship with Nono and were very close friends. How can ordinary people put so much effort into helping others to this extent? The people Nono Shiva had the most contact with in the college were actually Mia and El. Although Teacher Ham also liked him very much, this kind of love was only for the top 3 in the class, not just for him. To be honest, he didn't expect this bearded man to pay for the surgery in advance. The nerve repair surgery really helped him a lot, and the effect was better than he imagined. It is estimated that with his self-repair, he can make a complete recovery in just 1 month in bed. Thank you for reminding me, I will remember Teacher Ham's favor. Garin nodded and replied solemnly. The teacher is not asking you to return his favor, but he just hopes that you will not lose your future because of this accident, Mia said seriously. Not just you, Professor Ham has also supported many students in this way. He is a good person. Really? Good guy. Garin lowered his eyes and repeated the word. Garin's behavior is naturally different from that of Nono Siwa before, but Nono was originally taciturn and preferred to listen when getting along with friends. Mia and El only thought that he had changed after this incident. That is to say, I was surprised, and there was no big doubt. By the way, your body should recover within a month. Come to class as soon as possible to catch up, otherwise we won't wait for you. Mia stood up and smiled. Class is about to start, let's go first, You have a good rest. Al also stood up. Go, don't worry, I will catch up with you soon. Garen smiled. Goodbye, brother L. Mia. Brother Burin and his sister also stood up to see them off. A month of responses went by quickly. Galen was in the hospital bed every day. He was completely unable to move at first, then gradually became able to move his hands slowly, and then was able to get out of bed and walk. His recovery speed was very fast. With the help of my family, especially my younger brother Bolen, my parents occasionally come over to help. Garen didn't have much sympathy for his parents, but it was true that Nono's parents in this world were really simple people who work silently without any regrets, which made him slightly fond of them. After all, the cost of his daily hospitalization was earned by Nono's parents working from dawn to dusk, so he had to owe them a debt of gratitude. He took over Nono's body and naturally had to fulfill his responsibilities to Nono's parents. Everything went well with the reply, except that the place where the female murderer broke the bone still hurt. Although the repair surgery solved the fracture problem, and the soul seed stimulation repaired it completely, Garen still remembered the person with the young woman with red eyes. That guy was the one who almost caused him to lose a soul seed. Apart from these, the most important thing is the issue of consciousness. After Garen took possession of Nono's body, and after the body recovered, he immediately began to try to thoroughly understand the inner structure of the entire body. In order to fully understand what consciousness is. The results shocked him. Consciousness is actually a force field condensed from the entire body of the people here. If the human brain can produce nihilistic power such as mental power, then consciousness is a special force field that treats the entire human body as a brain and then generates it. And only people in this world have this kind of physiological structure to produce consciousness. After Garen finally figured out the source of his consciousness, time had almost passed and it was time for him to be discharged from the hospital. After a series of procedures, Teacher Ham, his parents and family, Mia, and Ella came. After some processing, Garen returned to the Black Pen Academy without changing his identity as Nono Siwa. Black Disc Academy. Physical Examination Room. Diddy. While the red indicator light was flashing, Garen sat in front of the silver scanner that looked like a big crab. He straightened his body and let the two scanning pliers of the big crab move in front of and behind him. All physical data are normal, student Nono Siwalan, it's time for you to lose weight, the scanning crab said loudly and unceremoniously. I have put on some weight since I was hospitalized recently. Garen walked down from the machine and said to Al, who was waiting beside him. Where's Mia? Why haven't I seen her during my recovery training these days? The Jiu-Jitsu association she joined was picked on, and she went back to deal with the situation as the vice president's right-hand man. Ai shrugged and smiled. Oh? Why were you picked? Garen became more and more familiar with the two of them. Ai was the kind of boy who was a little timid, but still had the courage to stand up for his friends. He continued to contribute during his hospitalization. It also received certain recognition from Galen. Recently, there was a new student who just entered the school who was very arrogant. He went around raiding the martial arts association in the school. It was quite lively anyway. I didn't care much about this. We are peace lovers, why do we care so much? That's right, Garen nodded in agreement, we are peace lovers, and fighting and killing is really inappropriate. It's time for the collective assessment of our C-Series class. The teacher's anger last time had to be vented by the top three of you. How are you recovering? Ai patted Garen on the shoulder. It's okay. Garen didn't know what to say, so he just answered honestly. Teacher Ham has placed all his hopes on you three. Ai lowered his voice. It's time to test your consciousness when your body is well. Right. Garen didn't have many of Nono's memories. Although he could get away with the excuse of being taciturn and having a slight amnesia after being severely injured, he really didn't know much information about the issue of consciousness. The part about consciousness in the soul fragments has been lost, and Garin has not come into contact with any teaching materials on consciousness so far. We can only take one step at a time. After hearing that Nono's body had completely recovered and had reached the standard for testing consciousness, Teacher Ham and Mia, who was in the Jiu-Jitsu Association, rushed back. In the test room, one after another, the testing instruments flashed with tiny red and blue lights. A female school nurse in white carefully put on a series of test leather accessories, leather gloves, leather aprons, and leather helmets on Galen. All of them were put on for wear testing. Garin stood on the testing platform, which was a round silver-white platform, like an enlarged coin placed on the ground. Instructors Ham and L stood on the side, specially coming to watch Galen's test. "Come on," AI gave Galen a thumbs up. Smiling, Garin stood firm on the platform. "Testing begins," an old-fashioned mechanical voice sounded from around the testing room. A blue light rose upward from Garin's feet, and then gradually and slowly moved toward his head. Even Garin is curious about what kind of changes will happen after he takes over Nono Siwa's body. Since consciousness is a force field generated by the whole body, what kind of changes will happen after he replaces Nono? Even he couldn't guess this. Consciousness was a thing beyond his comprehension and beyond his reach. This is a completely unfamiliar territory and power. I felt the blue line rising from my feet, giving me a warm feeling. The scanning speed was not fast, it could be said to be very slow. Garin closed his eyes and saw his own image in the large mirror opposite. His long black hair covers half of his face, his skin is pale and sunless, his figure is slightly chubby, and he wears a school uniform with white background and blue lines, which gives people a sense of decadence. It's just the calmness and confidence faintly revealed in those blue eyes that make the image in the mirror look a little calmer. This test should be able to detect the true condition of this body, although he estimated that he was unlikely to have consciousness. After all, this thing seemed to be related to the soul. His soul had never been trained by consciousness. How could he have such a consciousness? Plan something, but maybe after some repairs to this body, coupled with the unconscious influence of the soul seed, some changes may occur. Although this may not be big. I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint Teacher Ham this time. He knew that the teacher had great expectations for this identity, Nono Siwa. As the blue line crossed his legs and moved towards his abdomen and chest, Garin saw Al grinning at him and making a face. Teacher Ham seemed to understand something from the female school nurse's voice, and his face was filled with emotion. "Smile slightly. Is there really any surprise?" He was slightly confused. This body had not been trained in secret martial arts. Although it could barely use some skills to explode with lethality, it was still an ordinary person's body and could not hear whispers from such a distance.